Full Metal Jacket was not only a masterpiece about war, but also a curse that haunted many of the faces who appeared in it. Behind those smoke-filled battle scenes were shattered lives. Some died far too young, others passed away right under the blinding lights of the film set. Their stories will leave you both stunned and moved, because the truth is always more painful than what appears on screen. R. Lee Ermey as Gunnery Sergeant Hartman. R. Lee Ermey was born on March 24, 1944, in Emporia, Kansas. At 43 years old, he became Gunnery Sergeant Hartman in Full Metal Jacket, the fierce drill instructor whose fire-spitting rage and merciless discipline sent chills down audiences' spines in Full Metal Jacket 1987. The role was not only a cinematic milestone, but also a reflection of his own soul. When the set lights faded, Ermey's life entered a paradoxical new chapter. He was celebrated as the greatest soldier ever portrayed on screen, yet that very title became his cage. From Mississippi Burning, 1988, to C7N, 1995, Hollywood saw only one side of him, the stern, commanding authority figure. Behind those strong performances, however, was a man haunted by war, a man who once nearly turned a gun on himself, tormented by battlefield memories and nights drowned in alcohol and loneliness. As his acting career slowed, Ermey was reborn through his voice as Sarge in Toy Story, a small but loyal plastic soldier. Millions of children adored him, and for the first time, he felt forgiven. Through royalties and his History Channel series Mail Call, he amassed over $12 million in wealth. Though he never lived lavishly, he devoted much of his fortune to helping military veterans. On April 15, 2018, a relentless bout of pneumonia ended the journey of Gunny at the age of 74. His funeral was held at Arlington National Cemetery, and among the hundreds of white gravestones, one commanding voice still echoes in the minds of fans. "You are not a failure, Private." A farewell from the old soldier to himself. Bruce Boa as Colonel Pogue. Bruce Boa was born on July 10, 1930, in Calgary, Canada. At 57 years old, he played Colonel Pogue, the cold embodiment of authority, the man who stood against the young and reckless soldiers in the chaos of Vietnam in Full Metal Jacket 1987. His brief appearance perfectly captured the face of war's emptiness, powerful yet hollow. After that fleeting moment of glory, Boa's life descended into darkness. He had gained attention for Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back, 1980, and Fawlty Towers, 1979, but fame was not enough to sustain his career. By the 1990s, he was drowning in debt, losing his home, his work, and his faith in the very industry that once celebrated him. British studios remembered him only as the Canadian who played Americans, a title half triumphant, half bitter. His personal life collapsed alongside his career. His first wife, the great love of his life, died of cancer in 1985, leaving him consumed by grief and alcoholism. His second marriage survived only through silence and financial strain. He lived in isolation, avoiding friends, occasionally appearing in minor television roles just to afford his medication. On April 17, 2004, Bruce Boa took his final breath in Surrey, England, after months of battling lung cancer. His estate was worth only about $800,000 at the time of his death, but what he left behind was far more meaningful. The proof that sometimes, even a small role can be enough to etch one's name into cinematic history. Kevin Major Howard as Rafterman. Kevin Major Howard was born on January 27, 1956, in Montreal, Canada. When he joined Full Metal Jacket 1987 at the age of 31, he played Rafterman, a young combat photographer who witnessed the brutality of war through his camera lens. The role transformed him from an unknown actor into a rising star, but it also opened the door to a string of tragedies hidden behind the spotlight. When the Full Metal Jacket frenzy faded, Howard fell into the dark side of fame. Having appeared in Sudden Impact and Death Wish 2, he thought he was on his way to becoming a full-fledged action star. But as his fame declined, his life spiraled out of control. Unemployment, rejection, and Hollywood's cold indifference drove him toward drugs. By the late 1980s, he was addicted, jobless, divorced, and stripped of custody of his child. Yet from the ashes, he was reborn in a way no one expected, as one of Los Angeles's most renowned portrait photographers. The man who once captured the horrors of war now photographed the faces of Tom Cruise and Julia Roberts. BBC called him the king of Hollywood headshots, a man who could see light where others saw only darkness. Still, behind that success lay a lonely soul, a man who admitted that on many nights he considered ending his life because he felt he had failed as a father. On February 14, 2025, Kevin Major Howard died in Las Vegas from respiratory failure and pneumonia at the age of 69. His estimated net worth at the time of his death was $2.5 million, enough to prove one thing: he lived, he fought, and he ultimately conquered himself. Stanley Kubrick as Murphy. Stanley Kubrick was born on July 26, 1928, in New York. He was 59 years old, not only its director, but also the voice behind the minor character Murphy in Full Metal Jacket. It was a small detail, yet perfectly in line with Kubrick's nature. He had to control everything, even the very breath of his own creation. After that masterpiece, Kubrick nearly vanished from Hollywood. He lived in seclusion at Childwickbury Manor in England, turning his home into a fortress of creativity. He worked in silence, surrounded by thousands of sketches, test reels, and recordings of his own voice. As he aged, he became increasingly consumed by fear of illness, of imperfection, of the outside world itself. His 41-year marriage to Christiane Harlan was also marked by tension. He loved her, but he controlled her, leaving her to endure a life of solitude beside a genius too vast to touch. Kubrick left behind a string of masterpieces that forever changed cinema. 2001, A Space Odyssey, The Shining, A Clockwork Orange, and finally Eyes Wide Shut, the film he had just completed when fate struck. On March 7, 1999, Stanley Kubrick died peacefully in his sleep from a heart attack at the age of 70. His net worth at the time was around $20 million, but his true legacy lies in the films that made humanity bow before the terrifying perfection of his vision. Marcus D'Amico as Hand Job. Marcus D'Amico was born on December 4, 1965, in Frankfurt, Germany. When he appeared in Full Metal Jacket, 1987, at the age of 22, he played Hand Job, a timid, sensitive recruit caught in the madness of war. Though his role was small, it carried great emotional weight and marked the beginning of his short-lived career. No one could have imagined that this young man's real life would turn out to be as tragic as the character he portrayed. D'Amico entered the 1990s with ambition and the desire to prove himself. He reached an artistic peak with his portrayal of Michael Mouse Tolliver in Tales of the City, 1993, a groundbreaking gay character that made him famous in both the UK and the US. At the same time, his performance as Lewis in Angels in America, 1992, at the National Theatre earned him an Olivier Award nomination. Yet behind the bright lights was a quiet collapse. D'Amico refused to return for the sequel, and Hollywood's doors closed on him forever. His personal life was a series of tragedies. Coming out as gay at a young age led to rejection by his family. His relationships ended in heartbreak, and his decade-long cocaine addiction nearly killed him more than once. He was hospitalized 3 times for overdoses and survived a suicide attempt in 2015. Afterward, D'Amico retreated to small London theaters, living quietly and performing in roles few remembered. On December 16, 2020, Marcus D'Amico died in Oxfordshire of pneumonia caused by late-stage AIDS at the age of 55. His net worth at the time of his death was estimated at only $150,000, a modest sum, but his name endures as a symbol of courage and talent. Matthew Modine as Private Joker. Matthew Modine was born on March 22, 1959, in Loma Linda, California. At 28 years old, he played Private Joker, a battlefield journalist whose sarcastic smile stood as a glimmer of humanity amid the chaos of war in Full Metal Jacket, 1987. The role became not only a turning point in his career, but also an unforgettable milestone in cinematic history. As the film's acclaim spread worldwide, Modine faced the price of fame, being typecast as the Joker Soldier. Through the 1990s, he struggled with a string of underwhelming roles, from Vision Quest to Pacific Heights. Yet rather than disappear, Modine reinvented himself. He was honored at the Venice Film Festival, received a special Golden Globe along with the ensemble of Shortcuts, 1993, and made a triumphant return decades later as Dr. Brenner in Stranger Things, earning the prestigious Screen Actors Guild Award. Despite professional success, his personal life was not without turmoil. His marriage to Caridad Rivera once nearly collapsed under work pressure and the devastating loss of his close friend R. Lee Ermey, which pushed him into depression. But the couple reconciled, raising their 2 children, Ruby and Bowman, who became his emotional anchor in the turbulent world of Hollywood. Now, at 66 years old, Matthew Modine continues to work tirelessly, appearing in Godzilla x Kong and various independent art projects. His net worth is now estimated at around $12 million, the reward for over 4 decades of perseverance, ambition, and a heart that never stopped believing in the power of cinema. Vincent D'Onofrio as Private Pyle. Vincent D'Onofrio was born on June 30, 1959, in Brooklyn, New York. When he joined Full Metal Jacket, 1987, at 28 years old, he portrayed Private Leonard Gomer Pyle Lawrence, a naive recruit whose spirit is crushed by the brutality of war and relentless military pressure. To embody the role, he gained 70 pounds, 32 kilograms, leaving his body exhausted and his knees severely damaged. The performance turned him from an unknown actor into a global phenomenon, earning him the nickname Hollywood's Ultimate Chameleon. When filming ended, D'Onofrio wrestled with both fame and physical pain. After knee surgery, he was nearly unable to walk for months. The haunting presence of Pyle consumed him. At times he feared he might never escape that shadow. Yet he rose again with intense, transformative performances. Edgar the Bug in Men in Black, 1997, Detective Robert Gorin in Law and Order, Criminal Intent, 2001 to 2011, and Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin, in Daredevil. Each role seemed to reflect the same inner storm that had defined him. D'Onofrio's battles extended beyond acting. They were with his own body and mind. In 2004, he collapsed on set from exhaustion after 14-hour shooting days. Doctors diagnosed him with severe depression and chronic stress. His marriage to Dutch model Karen van der Donk went through several separations, as his work consumed nearly all of his time. Still, his 3 children, Layla, Elias, and Luca, became his anchor, grounding him in the real world and pulling him back from the loneliness that often haunted him. Now, at 66 years old, Vincent D'Onofrio shows no signs of stopping. He continues to reprise his role as Kingpin in Daredevil, born again, and is hailed by critics as the modern-day Brando. His estimated net worth stands at $16 million, the reward for nearly 4 decades of turning pain into timeless art. Adam Baldwin as Animal Mother. Adam Baldwin was born on February 27, 1962, in Winnetka, Illinois. At the age of 25, he appeared in Full Metal Jacket 1987 as Animal Mother, a fierce, hardened machine gunner whose brutality hides a rare sense of loyalty amid the chaos of war. The role made Baldwin a symbol of the quintessential American soldier. As the echoes of Full Metal Jacket faded, Baldwin immersed himself in action films such as Predator 2, Independence Day, and The Patriot. Yet fame wasn't enough to free him from being typecast as a supporting character. In the 2000s, he found renewed recognition through his portrayal of Jane Cobb in Firefly and Serenity, earning acclaim at the Sci-Fi Genre Awards. Later, Chuck, 2007 to 2012, brought him to a new audience as John Casey, a cold but deeply human secret agent. Off-screen, Baldwin faced profound personal loss. His younger brother died in a car accident, plunging him into depression, while his marriage to Ami Julius nearly collapsed in 2010. The couple briefly separated but reconciled for the sake of their 3 children. He also courted controversy for his outspoken conservative stance and his support of the Gamergate movement, which led to temporary industry backlash. Unshaken, Baldwin chose silence over confrontation and channeled his energy into veteran charity work through the organization Ride to Recovery. Today, at 63 years old, Adam Baldwin remains active on screen, appearing in The Last Ship and lending his voice to DC and Halo projects. His net worth is estimated at $8 million, enough for a peaceful life surrounded by family, far from the noise of Hollywood. Arliss Howard as Private Cowboy. Arliss Howard was born on October 18, 1954, in Independence, Missouri. When he joined Full Metal Jacket, 1987, at the age of 33, he played Private Cowboy, the calm, loyal soldier who stood by Joker amid the madness of war. Though not a lead role, his portrayal stood out for its quiet depth, melancholy gaze, and rare humanity within Kubrick's brutal military world. Yet the price of early recognition would soon come due. After the film, Howard faced a harsh reality. He was labeled too unpredictable, not fitting the mold of a commercial actor, and struggled through supporting parts in Tequila Sunrise, Natural Born Killers, and The Sandlot. The constant professional tension led to heavy drinking between 1995 and 2000, costing him several major opportunities. However, he found redemption through directing. His film Big Bad Love, 2001, which he wrote and directed, earned accolades at the Sundance Film Festival. His personal life was equally turbulent. His first marriage to Karen Sellers ended in 1986, leaving him with 1 son. In 1996, he married actress Deborah Winger, his partner, co-star, and ultimately his savior who helped him overcome addiction. Though they briefly separated due to long filming schedules, the couple reconciled, raising 2 children together and collaborating on projects such as Dawn Anna, 2005. Now, at 71 years old, Arliss Howard continues to work tirelessly, appearing in The Thicket and various independent productions. His net worth is estimated at $6 million, earned primarily through acting and directing, a modest but meaningful fortune for a man who nearly lost everything in pursuit of art. Dorian Harewood as Eightball. Dorian Harewood was born on August 6, 1950, in Dayton, Ohio. When he appeared in Full Metal Jacket, 1987, at the age of 37, he portrayed Eightball, a strong, courageous black soldier who embodied humanity and resilience amid the chaos of the Vietnam War. Though his role was small, it carried powerful meaning, reflecting the harsh reality faced by soldiers of color. With his deep voice and steady gaze, Harewood turned Eightball into a symbol of dignity and endurance in wartime. When the film ended, Harewood entered the peak of his television career. His portrayal of Jesse Owens in The Jesse Owens Story, 1984, earned him the NAACP Image Award, paving the way for appearances in I'll Fly Away and Seventh Heaven. Still, racial bias in Hollywood often barred him from leading roles, forcing him to shift toward voice acting. There, he flourished, becoming a familiar voice to millions through animated series like Spider-Man, Iron Man, and Biker Mice from Mars. Dorian's battles extended beyond the screen. After losing his father at age 10, he supported his family by studying music and performing to earn money. In 1979, he married actress Nancy Ann McCurry, and despite financial struggles and the heartbreak of losing his mother, he never lost his optimism or sense of purpose. Today, at 75 years old, Dorian Harewood remains active, lending his voice to Bel-Air and various animated projects. His net worth is estimated at around $4 million, the reward for a lifetime of quiet dedication to film, television, and giving a voice to his community. John Terry as Lieutenant Lockhart. John Terry was born on January 25, 1950, in Vero Beach, Florida. When he appeared in Full Metal Jacket, 1987, at the age of 37, he played Lieutenant Lockhart, a cold, pragmatic commander amid the chaos of the Vietnam War. Though his screen time was brief, the role left a distinct impression and opened the door to Hollywood for a man who once worked as a carpenter building wooden houses. When the echoes of Full Metal Jacket faded, Terry's career entered a period of uncertainty. He was cast as Felix Leiter in The Living Daylights, 1987, only to slip into a series of smaller parts in Country and Of Mice and Men. The 1990s proved to be a quiet decade for him, as he struggled through short-lived TV series like Against the Grain, which was canceled after just a few months. His 1994 divorce from Merrill Dandridge sent him into depression. He lost custody of his son Noah and quietly withdrew from Hollywood for several years. It wasn't until the early 2000s that Terry found his footing again through television. His role as Christian Shepherd in Lost, 2004 to 2010, made him unforgettable as the emotionally complex father figure whose presence haunted the series. The role revived both his career and his spirit, restoring his confidence after years of struggle. Though still often cast in supporting roles, he became one of the show's most beloved characters. Now, at 75 years old, John Terry has retired from the spotlight, living peacefully in Utah with his two children, J.T. and Hannah Terry, a professional soccer player. He now spends his days writing screenplays and teaching acting part-time. His estimated net worth of $3 million stands as Edo Ross as Lieutenant Touchdown. Edo Ross was born on July 5, 1949, in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. At 38 years old, he played Lieutenant Touchdown in Full Metal Jacket, 1987. A tough, gritty, and outspoken soldier who embodied the archetype of the classic American military man. The role made O. Ross one of cinema's go-to faces for the hard-edged character type throughout the 1980s, though his path to that recognition was scarred by hardship and loss. After the film's release, O. Ross was cast in Red Heat, 1988, alongside Arnold Schwarzenegger and later in Dick Tracy, 1990. But fame came with temptation. Gambling, alcohol, and reckless living left him bankrupt by 1998. Once a Golden Gloves boxer in 1964 and a promising baseball player, O. Ross brought an authentic physical intensity to his performances, so much so that audiences often felt he wasn't acting but living the role itself. Yet that same rawness isolated him in his private life. His marriage to Lucy Lynn ended in divorce, and his two sons went to live with their mother. O. Ross declined quietly, taking on repetitive supporting parts in Walker, Texas Ranger, and 6 Feet Under. Though he never landed a leading role, he remained one of Hollywood's most dependable faces when a real tough guy was needed. After overcoming financial ruin, he reinvented himself through voice acting, lending his voice to projects like Men in Black, the series, and Justice League. Now, at the age of 76, Edo Ross divides his time between New York and Los Angeles, devoting much of his life to teaching acting and practicing meditation. His estimated net worth of around $2 million comes mostly from his work in action films and voiceover projects. The quiet legacy of a man who turned pain and endurance into the essence of his art. Tim Culkery as Door Gunner. Tim Culkery was born on June 15, 1951, in Canton, Ohio. When he appeared in Full Metal Jacket, 1987, at age 36, he played the helicopter gunner, a brief but unforgettable role marked by the chilling line, "Get some." Few people know that Stanley Kubrick had originally cast Culkery in the lead role of Gunnery Sergeant Hartman, but just weeks before filming began, he was replaced by R. Lee Ermey. The shock of that decision nearly destroyed his dream of becoming an actor. When the film premiered, Culkery faced one of the most painful realities of his career, watching another man shine in the role that had once been his. He even filed a lawsuit against the production company claiming wrongful dismissal, but the case failed, plunging him into despair. Yet rather than quitting, Culkery turned his anger into fuel, taking on small but steady roles in Eraser, 1996, The Fantastic Four, 1996, and dozens of action television series. Before acting, Culkery had lived many lives. He served 13 months as a Marine in Vietnam, later attending Arizona State University. He was also a professional golfer until a serious injury ended his career, and afterward he worked as a flight attendant before finding his way into acting. His life has been a story of constant reinvention and resilience. In 2025, at 74 years old, Tim Culkery lives in Arizona, where he is directing a documentary on female genital mutilation, FGM, a humanitarian project he calls the most important film of my life. His estimated net worth is around $1.5 million, earned from film work and his private business ventures. Kirk Taylor as Payback. Kirk Taylor was born in 1959 in Bridgeport, Connecticut. At the age of 28, he portrayed Sergeant Payback, a brave, sharp-minded soldier navigating the smoke and chaos of Vietnam in Full Metal Jacket, 1987. Though his role was small, Taylor's intelligent gaze and commanding voice left a lasting impression on audiences. Following his breakthrough in Full Metal Jacket, Taylor went on to shine in Spike Lee's School Daze, 1988, and on stage in Five Guys Named Moe, a musical that earned him thunderous applause and critical praise. Yet soon after, Hollywood turned its back on him. Leading roles grew scarce, racial bias persisted, and fierce competition left Taylor increasingly marginalized. Tragedy struck in 2005, when his younger brother was killed in a car accident, plunging him into deep depression. But instead of surrendering, Taylor found healing through music and teaching. Since the 2010s, Taylor has become a respected acting coach in New York, mentoring hundreds of young black performers. He has appeared in stage productions of Twelfth Night, King Lear, and Jelly Roll, The Music and the Man, and shared the screen with Robin Williams in The Angriest Man in Brooklyn, 2014. Though he never achieved mainstream stardom, he earned enduring respect as a devoted artist who values passion over fame. In 2025, at 66 years old, Kirk Taylor continues to teach at performing arts academies and direct community theater. His estimated net worth of $800,000 may be modest, but it stands as proof that his true worth lies not in wealth, but in the legacy of inspiration he's built for generations of artists to come. Sal Lopez as T.H.E. Rock. Sal Lopez was born on November 8, 1954, in Mexico and raised in south-central Los Angeles. When he appeared in Full Metal Jacket, 1987, at age 33, he played T.H.E. Rock, one of the few Latino-American soldiers in the platoon, bringing authenticity and resilience to the brutal reality of war. When the spotlight of Full Metal Jacket faded, Lopez faced the harsh reality of a Hollywood that rarely welcomed Latino actors. He was repeatedly typecast in roles as gang members, immigrants, or nameless side characters in films like Born in East L.A., 1987, and Colors, 1988. By the early 1990s, his career had stalled, debts piled up, and his marriage strained under financial pressure. Yet in what seemed like the darkest time of his life, Lopez rediscovered his identity, not on film sets but on stage. He became one of the founding members of the Latino Theater Company, where he has devoted over 38 years to creating an artistic home for the Latin American community. Lopez has written, acted, and directed dozens of plays exploring the lives of immigrants and the forgotten dreams of ordinary people. Although his first marriage ended, leaving him to raise 2 young children alone, he never abandoned the stage. In 2002, he made a strong television comeback with The Shield, earning an NAACP Image Award nomination. Today, at 71 years old, Sal Lopez continues performing in Los Angeles, teaching young actors and directing works that celebrate hope and human dignity. His estimated net worth is $1.2 million, the modest but honorable result of a lifetime dedicated to art and community. Every name from Full Metal Jacket left a deep imprint on cinema history and in the hearts of movie lovers. Though some are gone, their legacy endures through every frame, every echo from that cinematic battlefield long ago. Which of them do you remember the most? Leave your thoughts below, and don't forget to subscribe for more untold stories behind Hollywood's brightest and most tragic lights.